business units that we're working for all aligned as well, because how many of you work on a delivery team and you've got a lot of different business areas shouting at you to do their work? And how efficient and effective is that? So we need to try and take away that noise, and I've got to figure out how to drive this from here. Anyone know? How do you drive a PowerPoint from here? Oh, well, what? Can't I just... Oh, just do it from here. There's me. Rugby's a game they play in heaven. You better learn the rules. There's my experience. I've worked in a lot of different roles. Never been a developer because I'm not that way inclined. So I'm very much on the business side. But I worked in a lot of different organisations across the place. We already talked, well, what is scaled agile? What does scaling mean to you? We'll quickly move on because I'm going to push through this really fast. But basically, how do we align multiple teams with multiple plans, multiple bosses, under one process to try and achieve one single cohesive goal? That's what we've got to keep in the back of our mind. And keep using the word framework, not a methodology. So you're all familiar with the basic building block of Scrum? Anyone not? I can't get this thing working because I haven't got it on. So basically this says, what is the most optimised team you know? It's the All Blacks, right? But it's a good way of looking at it. So they're one element of a delivery system. They're the guys on the field. But there's a huge input process to get there, and there's a huge output process as well. So it's not just about the team, it's about the managers, it's all the peripheral areas that also need to play their part for this team to be successful on the field. And if one of those peripheral areas actually drops the ball, that we're going to struggle to be successful and win the next World Cup. But because we're so successful, every time we think we've got there, there's always something else. Everybody asks something more. We want more, we want more. And this is where scaling's coming along. How do we actually raise ourselves to the next level? So we're looking at our input process. We've got multiple different areas demanding that we do work for them, and quite often it's he who shouts loudest or she who shouts loudest gets their work done, but are we optimising the value through our system? We've also got a deployment process which is pretty ugly and very inefficient, so we need to start looking at how do we optimise a delivery process, especially when you've got multiple teams trying to achieve the same goal. So we need to ask for help. So I'm just going to give you an idea of what it looks like until you put it in something like a safe picture. So scaling up, you've got lots of different areas that you need to try and coordinate and collaborate with. This is where we were going before. You need more logistics and support. So additional roles, additional artifacts, ceremonies. You need to put in more controls in terms of trying to achieve that single consistent goal, but always remembering just enough. We don't want to overdo it and kill people in our teams that are trying to do the delivery work. I'm working in an organisation at the moment where there's a lot of noise from management that is actually constricting the team's ability to deliver. A single stand-up when I started was taking an hour, purely because of the management jabber. As soon as you took them out of it, then they actually understood what they wanted to do, really simply. I ran a planning meeting last Tuesday, and the managers talked for an hour, and I summarised it with one sentence, what they're actually looking for. All they needed to say was one sentence, and we could have moved on. So it's trying to understand the different ways of doing. So understanding multi-level planning, starting from your vision, your roadmap, your release plan, your iteration plan, your daily plan. Breaking it down on that order. Without a roadmap, I think you'll always struggle. Trying to achieve technical excellence, getting your CI, continuous integration, continuous delivery model working, validating your learning, collaboration across the teams. What is the best means to enable that, and trying to create a potentially shippable increment. And of course you need to plan, do and reflect. So if we look at release planning, we're planning across X number of iterations to try and get to a point where we know we can deliver this portion of value to our stakeholders. This is what they're paying us for. We need to set an expectation and set a vision. This is how we can achieve it. But we can only do it so far out, because the further out we go, we lose focus. We don't actually understand what changes may come about. Then you start multiplying and coordinating that across multiple different teams. So you're going to have your Scrum of Scrums. You've got all these different teams. You need to do your mid-range planning. By the way, that is the single area I've seen in the last 2 years in Australia that is missing, and that is that mid-range plan. You'll have your high-level vision, and you'll have your team spinning away doing stuff, but they actually haven't planned out their mid-range. So they're just spending doing a lot of work, which actually isn't achieving a lot of value.
Sorry, Steve, what is the mid-range?
Your program level planning, so planning out to the next 3 to 6 months. So they've got this big overarching piece of work. The worst case I saw was a $500 million program of work, which was the vision, and there was teams spinning away, probably spending about 150 grand per team, 6 teams, delivering what? Until they actually started breaking it down. What is the roadmap? How do we break it down to something small and tangible we can understand and deliver on? And then we can get the teams to understand what they're actually trying to do as well. So you need to go up there and then start looking, okay, if you look at the upstream ceremonies to support that, you've got your feedback loops, you've got your product owner council, you've got steering committees, so it's starting to get a little bit messy, right? And it gets worse because we're still only at the team and the program level. We need to understand what the architectural runway is. You need an architectural council, you've still got your steering group, and you've got all these things. And who goes to a lot of meetings every day and doesn't get any work done? How is this starting to look to you? Pretty worrying, because you've got to have an input to all of these. Then you've got to start thinking about the roadmap. How do we steer it rather than aim it? Try and direct it, follow where we're trying to get to, rather than say this is the goal, just go hell for leather and get there. Because the one thing we can guarantee is going to happen is what? Change. Change will happen, so we've got to enable that to occur in the process we come up with. So supporting it, we also need infrastructure and tooling. We need functional centres of excellence, and we need to create specialist teams. It's getting a little bit busy, right? I'm sorry I'm talking fast. I am a New Zealander, so that's allowed, and I've got very little time left, so I'm still going to hit it. So we need to support it. So your product owner council's got to come in there. Then you've got to bring it all together, and that's pretty messy, right? Pretty hard to understand. You can just see there's going to be meeting hell from here on in. But we forgot portfolio management. That was only the program level and the team level. Now we've got to bring in portfolio management. So it's a little bit messy. You try and sell this to an executive team in terms of this is what scaling Agile looks like, what are they going to say? They'll say, no, thank you very much. So, oh, damn it. I'll have to try and get this to work. That's what?
Arrows left and right. Click away menu.
Where am I going?
Under the text view, there are 2 arrows left and right. What do they do?
I'm lost. Oh, there and there.
View. What do they do?
Yeah, next page.
I'd
suggest downloading it. The arrow on the left, click on that, download it to your desktop.
That might take a while, right? Anyway, I will, while that's downloading, I've lost the page, we'll just creep forward to where we are. I do apologise for this. Play. Slideshow. Do I have to do anything there? Yes. Alright. Whistling along, and we'll get to where we were. So the simplest way of looking at the Scaled Agile framework is to align strategy with execution, and my colours are working up there, but more importantly, we're aligning the business with the delivery teams doing it. Does that make sense? If we look at this, there's some area, we're breaking it down so you've got features and architectural features, but what we're really missing is if you look at it from an outcome basis, there's people, process and technology. Scaled Agile framework is only looking at the technology. I really want them to start bringing in another coloured feature, which is your business features, which is your change and your comms that you need to actually deliver to achieve the outcome. You can deliver the greatest software in the world, but if people don't need to use it, how are you going to get your ROI? So hopefully that's something that they'll develop in the future. And that at least that Agile release train engineer, that role that sits somewhere up, oh, she got a pointer, does this work? Up there, that person will be responsible for the outcome, not just the delivery of the software, the outcome. So they'll coordinate the delivery of the software as well as the business epics and features that also need to take place. So strategy meets execution. Business and IT are friendly instead of this siloed approach that we've got at the moment. And then we'll get a continuous flow of value. So if you imagine this process here, we're simply flowing work from here at these levels here through the system, and it continually works. It's just continuous flow of value rather than a messed up start up a project, take down a project, start up a project, take down a project. And every time you do that, you go through the team building process, forming, storming, norming, performing, and how effective is that? So we're trying to eliminate waste in the system. But trying to sell this to an executive, they can understand that a lot easier than that other really messed up picture. And it's just trying to sell the idea that strategy meets execution. These are stable teams that continually deliver, and we're just flowing work through a system. So what I want to do is look at a couple of different parts of this. So I want to look at the investment themes and the value stream mapping, program, portfolio management, product management, release management, and system teams. Is that okay? I'm only going to focus on there because I'm pretty confident you get a pretty good idea what happens down here. So value stream maps are really important. They identify who should be involved on your release train. So if you go through your value stream map and you find all the various areas, then you know who should have a part to play in it. And you can also, when you go through this, you start identifying your waste in your system. Where are all the sign-off parts? When you have to send something off and you've got to wait. How long does that take and what does that actually mean to your delivery process? Try and eliminate that by getting the right people involved with the team. So you've got that cohesive flow working. So program portfolio management, you're starting to look at your investment funding lines, which is those things there. That to me is, I think, is the most important area of the portfolio level. You're setting up a bucket of money, if you like, that's going to fund an element of work. If you work in a lot of organisations now where automation is a key part of what they're trying to do, maybe you're going to put several $1 million into that bucket for automation. All of those initiatives that are automation based go against that bucket, and you're just starting to prioritise them on value. If you've got new product innovation or something like that, maybe you want to put a funding line there for that, and you just continually flow those work elements into there. Ideally, your exec will have some ideas which will come out in your roadmap in terms of the initiatives they want, but you can also be pretty sure there's going to be a lot of work flowing at the program level, not just your executive level as well. So it's trying to make sure we can cover both. And having some, if you don't have any governance, how successful are you going to be? But it's the right level of governance. It's not saying, and it's quite important to note that the role of the PMO is not to direct and control, it's to facilitate. So who should be in there? Budget holders and decision makers. This is at your PPM level. Budget holders and decision makers, CTO, CIO, senior development managers. Your PMOs are there to shepherd. You should have SMEs from the domains, because otherwise you're just making decisions without any real information. And obviously you're going to have your enterprise level architects, because they're going to have to decide how this thing's going to hang together technically. Feel free to jump in if you've got any questions. Product management, they're the content authority. So that's that next circle down at your program level layer. So they're the content authority. They decide on the business elements that they want to flow through the system. Not to be confused with your architectural element, which define the architectural elements that are going to flow through your system. So they are working very closely with, so who should be in that? And I'll ask you guys a question. If you think that these are the people that are responsible for the work that flows through the system into your teams, who should be in that group? Sorry? Business representatives? Business SMEs, yep. Who else?
The teams.
Representatives from the teams, perhaps, yep. Who else? Perhaps some BAs going to break down the work. There's a whole heap of different areas, but it's quite simple. It could be business owners, business analysts, and program project managers. They should be in there. So remember, they are decision makers. They are making the decisions of what is the highest priority work for the teams to break down and execute on. Release management is another area. I don't know if you can see that there, but that's the classic fullback tackle in rugby. That's just throw it over the fence and say yours. And they usually get creamed. How many people work in an organisation where you develop all this great software and you give it to an ops team to deliver and just walk away? And where does that leave you? and a lot of problems. So we're trying to bring release management into the process as well. So they've got a part to play. They should be involved in the upfront planning. So they can actually start aligning all the various elements, make sure the infrastructure's in place, the operational team knows what's happening, when things are going to happen. Might not be exactly as they thought, but at least they've got an idea, and they start to coordinate the whole thing, rather than just throwing it over the fence and say, deliver that when you can. So they should collaborate closely with the systems team, which we'll talk about. Business owners as well, because we should be delivering on a cadence, but releasing on demand. So we've got a regimented cadence, we deliver. At a certain point in time, the business owners say, we want that functionality in the market so we can get some ROI. I keep trying to press this and it doesn't work. System team, they bring the whole thing together. I did have a picture of a dietary tract of a human here, but it didn't really work. So they ensure everything's integrated into a working whole. So you may have 3 or 4 different teams in your release train, and they're working in 2-week sprints, so you need to bring that up to a level where all the integration's taken place and they can actually showcase that big chunk of value to your senior managers. And that's the role of your systems team. So they'll do your showcase and they'll bundle everything up and make it work. So if you look at the scaled Agile framework, to my mind, this area here is probably one of the most important. If you go through the training, you did the training, did you do a Lego model or something like that? So what did you learn out about from that in terms of the system team? Who generally plays the coordination part there?
Project manager or someone who takes all the automatically.
Okay. So what I've found when I've run this exercise is I don't tell them anything, and the system team just starts asking the question, well, who's going to do all this? And they generally put up their hand and say, it has to be us. No one else is doing it. You've got a team doing this, you've got a team doing that, and a team doing that, and they find they don't talk. So the system team thinks, oh, we've actually got to lay all this together and make it work. So this is one of the most important areas is the system team. So just retouching on it again, strategy meets execution. I'm just trying to keep track of the time. Trying to get a continuous flow of value. And that'll be it. I started late and finished on time because I talk real fast. So in terms of that, what questions do you have that you don't understand about SAFe?
My question, I thought I get a small overview of the new roles that Excel, for example, are new compared to Scrum. I got system team, release management, product management. These are some new roles in it. What makes it scalable? What makes the difference scale out scaling because you have 3 teams? What is the thing in it? The values?
It's a very good question. What makes it scalable is the fact that the planning element of it. And you're planning at this level here, probably got a 12-month roadmap or something like that, that's your vision. But you've also got a hell of a lot of work coming in at this level. And these guys here are responsible for planning that program backlog based on value. So they're planning the work that flows through here. So this just keeps delivering. It just keeps on tracking along. As long as you look after your teams, you give them the right infrastructure, the right tooling, they will just keep delivering value. This area here has got to make sure that they're delivering the right value at the right time. So it's scaling up. You've also got a whole heap of metrics which flow up here and measurement. But one of the key things you're getting by this process here, you're getting predictability, and you can actually start using that to aid your planning process. So keeping it really simple. And this here is just a framework. You can apply it in any shape or form that works. You can apply it at multiple big enterprises. I think Australia Post was 150 people in their PSI planning meetings. I've applied it in a small organisations that, as I said, had those 3 different business units, purely because each one of those business units fitted into the model of a release train. That stable teams, we're just trying to figure out how to consistently flow value through there. Any other questions?
Does it work?
Yes. But if you go into the nth degree and you dive into this and you want to try and just drop it into an organisation wholeheartedly and say that's what we're going to do, it probably won't. You get a lot of pushback. But if you take the concepts and the ideas in terms of how it fits together, then it will work. And it's just applying it. Even where I'm working now, we're going to go down this model purely because of the way they're structured in terms of the business units and then delivery. We've got channels, how we flow work through those channels. And this will fit the model perfectly. Sorry, I'm almost done. Yep.
Common problem? Biggest common problem? Like you've used a couple of places, what do you find like?
Biggest problem is finding out who should sit in these teams. That's the biggest problem. The team's quite happy to work in this way. The biggest problem is there's two. One is who should sit in these teams, and then how do you take everybody out of that cold face into your planning meeting. So we're going to take, in a big organisation, it's a 2-day planning meeting. In a smaller organisation, you get past in 1 day. But you have a discussion with a budget holder and say, we're going to take everybody out of here, plus these guys, these guys, these guys, these guys, into a meeting for 2 days. And they start looking at the ching, 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 ching cost element of it, rather than simply the value element that they're going to deliver. I think when posted their first PSI planning meeting, from what Bobby told me, the sponsor was really, really happy afterwards, because she saw that by taking everybody out and doing the planning meeting, she reckoned they'd lost, I think, saved about 16 weeks or something like that off their delivery timetable. If you look at that many people, 150 people, 16 weeks, it's a no-brainer.
You said binding it with strategy to execution is important. I agree with that. Why doesn't the diagram have a strategy at the top and showing how that connects to the portfolio?
Suggested to them. I don't know. It should be. But quite simply, this is where strategy meets execution. And that's the simplest way to do it. And if you can think about that being strategy and execution, that's how you sell it to the full team. They understand that. Last one, I think, because you're up next, aren't you? Last one.
Would be fair to say that SAFE is more a method of streamlining the top-down elements in order to allow flow to work better to enable delivery?
No, I wouldn't say use the word top-down elements. I'd just take that out and say flow delivery of work. And then you'll be thinking along the right way. How do you flow work through the system? And then work backwards from that in terms of what do we need from those top-down elements to make it work. Okay, I'll be there to go. Thank you very much. And apologies for the delay.